Good morning and welcome to the show. It's the holiday season. Thanksgiving's around the corner, and who do I have here in the studio but Dr. Roman Nation from Nation's Best Family Healthcare.
Morning, sir.
Dr. Nation, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We always learn a lot from you, and I'm always throwing weird stuff at you.
Sure.
But we talked to your nutritionist. He's JT, has been on the show, and we talk about body chemistry and nutrition and healthy living.
Correct.
But all bets are off when Thanksgiving rolls around.
Yeah, most people, we kind of expect relapses.
Yeah, we do. I know. I plan on falling off the food wagon on Thanksgiving Day. Is that okay? Can we do that?
Is it okay? I mean,
to binge eat like that?
It's not obviously it's not the healthiest thing to do, but our bodies are very well adapted at making accommodations for those types of things. Mm-hmm. The main people that really need to be careful are the folks who have chronic diseases like heart failure or diabetes. Mm-hmm. Those are the two biggest ones. In residency and in most hospitals, they have this concept called holiday heart that happens right after Thanksgiving, right after Christmas,
holiday
heart right after New Year's. Is people with heart failure issues, their body's not regulated or able to adapt to those kinds of nutritional changes. So you have somebody that goes in who's normally eating once or twice a day. That's how a lot of people with heart failure just eat, and it's incorrect. Mm-hmm. They go into the holiday season and they have these giant meals, and not just one day. That's usually 3 or 4 days in a row because of family events, and nobody wants to be rude when everybody brings over their favorite dish and you got to try this, and so
you eat and you eat and you eat, and maybe you smoke a little, maybe you have a drink.
Yeah. The holiday heart part is more so from the calorie and salt intake, and what it does is it when you take too much salt in. And or sugar, your body has to take in water and hold extra water to basically keep the calories inside, so that it has a place to bind it. And when that happens, it causes a fluid overload status in your heart, and then your heart can't keep up, so it goes into failure. That's when you get folks that all of a sudden they start gasping for air, and their lungs fill up with fluid, and then they end up in the hospital where they have to get diuresed, where they have to water taken off. You've heard people talk about, I was in the hospital and they took off 30 pounds of water weight. Those are the kinds of things that they're talking about, is that their body is holding so much extra fluid from the extra salt and sugar that they've taken in, that's all that extra stuff has to go somewhere. So it goes in their heart, it goes in their legs, and it goes in their ankles, stuff like that. And then you pull all of that off over a few days to get them better, and then send it back home.
Wow.
So
that's awful. That is awful. It's like, now, I guess if you're on a diet, maybe you're obese and you're dieting, and then Thanksgiving rolls around, you really need to be extra cautious.
Well, it depends, because when we look at our nutrition stuff that we do, there's a lot of brain chemistry that goes into, if you starve yourself too much, meaning that if you're consistently on a really, really strict diet. One, it plays with your brain in terms of like, well, I can't have this, and that causes a whole other anxiety type of issue. And then other times your brain kind of gets used to saying, well, this is all the calories I'm going to get, so I got to make do with it. Mm-hmm. So instead of burning fat, it reduces your energy levels, so people tend to do a little less activity. So the majority of folks that we have what they call cheat days, where at least for 5 or 6 hours out of at least one day out of the week, you purposefully don't pay attention to what you eat, or you eat poorly, to kind of reset that brain chemistry to get it to work properly, so that it can go back on Monday and say, okay, nope, now nose back to the grindstone, so then it keeps that metabolic plateau from keep coming down.
Now, what about alcohol? I mean, people tend to consume quite a bit over the holidays as well, and we got to be real careful of that. I know there's the obvious that you should not drink and drive. Yeah. You should not drink to the point where whatever, but it's okay to have a drink with dinner around the holidays.
And for the most part, alcohol by itself doesn't do much. The way it changes your metabolism is while your body's trying to digest alcohol, it inflames your liver. So if you have cholesterol issues on top of that, then it makes your liver enzymes not very happy. And what most people don't realize is that if you start building up scar tissue inside your liver from high cholesterol, fatty foods, if you have fatty liver disease, those kinds of things, all of those things compound. When you stack alcohol on top of that, it just makes the problem worse.
So it really doesn't help
no,
at all.
No, and it's a concept that once the damage is done, kind of like with smoking, and lung disease, once the damage is there and the scar tissue is there, you can't get rid of it. So,
wow.
And if you get to the point where you're symptomatic from it, like with smoking, by the time you're symptomatic from your smoking, the horse has already left the barn a long time ago.
geez, we have to run off to local weather. Thanks for cheering me up. And, and
holiday cheer.
Yeah, we'll talk more about holiday cheer on the other side of your local weather, brought to you by the West Pittman Law Firm. westpittmanlawfirm.com. Welcome back to the show. I'm here at Dr. Roman Nation, and we're talking about holiday cheer and overeating, which a lot of us do. And for a lot of us, it's a cultural thing.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the holidays are kind of built around food, aren't they?
Yeah.
And not activities.
No.
Yeah.
It's kind of ironic. The origin of Christmas was around a Roman pagan holiday when it originated, but it had a lot of chaos and bad things going on. So that's when they changed it into a religious holiday at that time. And so because of that, now it's become more associated with food. And then you have Thanksgiving, which is a uniquely American holiday that's all around food. And then shopping the next day, those kinds of things.
But if you're like I was, in my family growing up, you would eat, watch football, sleep, get up, eat some more, watch football, sleep, and not necessarily healthy.
No, and really, you know, there's some of the stuff is just doing things in moderation in terms of not having a plate that's this big and have a plate that's this big.
Portion
and you can
control,
go back 3 or 4 times. You know, your body will generally tell you that, hey, I'm full. You don't need to feed me again for a little while. There is a lot of benefit to having smaller, more frequent meals. So, you know, eat a little bit, 3 hours later, eat a little bit more, 3 hours later, eat a little bit more. Those are all actually good, healthy habits to do. And in between those 3-hour meals, instead of sitting and watching TV or football, go play football or go for a walk or something like that.
Go outside, go for a walk after dinner.
Do something where you're not sitting down.
Yeah, and just a little bit, and I think you mentioned just the act of standing rather than sitting.
Yes, yeah, your body actually burns twice as many calories resting if you're standing up versus sitting down.
Isn't that amazing? Wow. And you know, the holidays, when you talk about Thanksgiving and now, of course, Christmas is coming up, there are some special treats that are associated with that. I mean, there's going to be a big ham, there's going to be turkey, there's going to be stuffing. You know, there may be some fried things too.
Yeah, the big things that get most people in trouble is the salt content.
And the desserts too.
Yeah, the sugar and
fat. I love salt.
Yeah.
Sugar I don't care about. I'm like a salt junkie. If something's salty, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, like I said, for most folks that don't have chronic diseases, it's not that big of a deal because they'll put on a few extra pounds, and then New Year's resolution comes around in January, and then that's how we actually got our program started last year, was folks coming in and saying, hey, I put on 20 pounds over the holiday, you know, can you help me get it off? And that's where JT and
the first couple weeks of the year, the gyms are packed.
Oh yeah,
with new members.
Yep. Yeah, for at least 2 weeks.
And then they kind of cull the herd after a while.
Then people realize it hurts to do this, and then they don't have the stamina in order to keep it up. But it goes away. I mean, all of that discomfort goes away if you keep it up.
Well, you know, you look at like the special treats like pumpkin pie. I mean, what's Thanksgiving without pumpkin pie?
Yep.
You know, or Boston cream pie in my case. I mean, people go for those type things. I think we were talking during the break about some of the crazy foods that are out there as special treats, like those deep fried Twinkies.
Yep.
They even have fried butter. You deep fry a stick of butter and eat it straight. I mean, what is less healthy than that?
Not much.
Not much. You know.
No, I think some people do that as a gimmick to prove how sturdy their stomach is.
Yeah. You know. Snickers bars, I think they deep fry those.
Yep. Yeah, Reese's peanut butter cups, Oreos, those kinds of things. And you have the same thing at the candy shop. I mean, over at Pier Park, they have chocolate covered Oreos. You know. And in small amounts, because you can only cram so much fat and sugar and calories into a finite content. So it's really the volume, you know. So yeah, a stick of butter that's fried is this big, and you're probably looking at about 1,000 calories with that. But you take that down to a chocolate covered Oreo, a single chocolate covered Oreo, you're looking at maybe 150 calories, which is a whole lot better than a whole thing.
How many calories a day should we be taking in?
Depends on the person's body weight, and it depends on their age, metabolism, a whole bunch of other things. But on the whole, most people's average calorie intake should be around 1,800. So more if they're more active and less if they're more sedentary.
So that one fried stick of butter keep you going for half a day at least.
Oh yeah, that would be enough. And the problem,
not good stuff though.
Well, the problem there also is that once your body gets it has to do something with it. So it either drives it into your cells, into your muscles, to burn as energy, and then it drives some of it towards your liver to store. And if it doesn't have a place for it to go, that's where it goes. It just goes to store. And if anything's left over, it stores it in your fat. So once it's converted into fat, though, it takes a whole lot more work to reverse that process to get it actually mobilized the other direction.
So if we need to do that, we probably need to call you or your nutritionist, JT, make an appointment and say, hey, I need to reverse this process, get rid of some of this fat. But as always, I guess the best advice is moderation.
Moderation in all things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit of moderation, not too much. Because I'm moderate that way.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Roman Nation from Nation's Best. And we'll be right back after your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hi, I'm David Lovett, and this is your Mad Hatter Minute. Maintaining proper tire pressure helps increase fuel efficiency and driving performance. Correct tire pressure allows the driver to experience a smooth ride and performance designed to match the needs of the vehicle. An underinflated tire becomes flattened and more surface area makes contact to the road. If a vehicle's tire pressure is underinflated by as little as 6 pounds, it can mean damage to the tire. Lower tire pressure allows the tire to bend more as it rolls. This will build up heat back into the tire and reduce the tire's lifespan by as much as 25%. You will also experience a significant decrease in your steering with lower tire pressure. Look on the sidewall of your tire. It should have the maximum tire pressure that the tire can hold. You can inflate your tires up to that maximum amount of pressure, but don't go over. Overinflation of your tire could have just as serious consequences as underinflation. An overinflated tire creates too much air back inside the tire. Going over potholes and bumps in the road makes it an extremely rough ride. Additionally, overinflated tires will create premature tire wear. The correct amount of tire pressure can be easily checked with the tire gauge. To ensure your vehicle is running as smooth as it can, make sure the tire pressure is set to the maximum PSI. I am David Lovett, and that has been your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hey folks, this is Joshua Brown with Mad Hatter on 23rd Street. Is your check engine light on? If it is, text MADHAT28, that's MADHAT28, to 24247, and we'll check it for free.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Dr. Aaron Shores from Spine and Neuro Pain Specialists. And I just want to ask you again, and I know we've probably talked about it before, what exactly is pain management? Yeah. I mean, it seems like a real overarching name for a place.
Yeah, I get asked that a lot of times by new patients who wonder what it is we do. I think the misconception out there a lot of times is that, you know, we just write medications for people or narcotics in particular, and I have a lot of patients that are pleasantly surprised when they come see us and realize that that's not always the primary focus of our practice. So basically what we do is we take painful situations from the time of their onset. We're able to work them up, diagnose them, and then treat them, whether it be with different physical therapies or medications or injections or minimally invasive surgeries, all the way up to really where someone requires a traditional fusion or traditional spine surgery. And our job really is to try to keep people away from more invasive treatments in order to restore function and quality of life.
Are your patients typically people with chronic pain or someone with just an acute pain from perhaps an accident or something?
Well, both. You know, the majority of our practice is probably chronic pain, but we see a fair amount of new pain issues, whether it be from car accidents. We see, you know, a lot of you know, shingles pain, for example, is one that we see that's relatively new and can be quite uncomfortable for folks. So we see a lot of new pain issues as well, but I would probably say the majority of my practice is probably more chronic pain.
But it's basically any kind of pain, not just spine pain.
Correct.
Yes. Because you mentioned shingles, and that kind of threw me off.
Yeah, shingles is a very painful condition that happens a lot of times with folks later in life. It's a situation where the recurrence of the chickenpox virus can affect a particular nerve, and it can be very, very miserable and very uncomfortable for folks, and oftentimes not very responsive to medication. So there's sometimes an injection or two that we can do for that will oftentimes help expedite the recovery of that pain. So that's something that we get referrals for on a regular basis, and is a new pain because it's something that has a sudden onset and like I said, is something that should be treated rather soon.
That's a terrible thing to think about, because I'm of an age where, I remember all those childhood diseases.
Right.
And if you had the chicken pox, you're at risk for shingles.
Yes.
But there's a vaccine for that, isn't there?
There is a vaccine for that, for sure, and that's something I encourage all of our patients to discuss with their primary care physicians, because there are some limitations to who can have the vaccine and who can't. But certainly those type of acute or new pain issues can be quite severe and debilitating for folks, and the sooner that they can be treated, the better the prognosis will be long term for recovery.
Just kind of off the cuff, I was watching this special on the Civil War on TV not too long ago.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I do watch TV. And and they were talking about morphine and how a lot of these Civil War veterans became addicted because they had these grievous injuries, and they knew very little about the effects or the addictive effects of the opiates that they were administering these veterans. And there was a whole generation of addicts that were created. We've learned a lot since then, but addiction is still a problem, isn't it, Doctor?
Addiction is a problem, and when we see a lot of folks that have a high addictive risk, and we always pay attention to that. I certainly, there are some patients that worry, I think, a little bit too much about becoming addicted to medications, but then there also is the flip side of that coin, that we sometimes have patients that they can't always seem to get enough medication, and that sometimes can be a problem. So we want to make sure that we try to find that balance and get folks the help that they need. Sometimes I find too, people mistake addiction for a different process. Commonly patients will sometimes run out of medications early, not because they're addicted to medications or taking more than prescribed to get high, but rather because they feel that their pain is undertreated, something called pseudo-addiction. Which is a different discussion, and we need to revisit, exactly how we're approaching that individual's pain.
Pseudo-addiction.
Pseudo-addiction, yeah. So, so it's patients sometimes will take more medication than prescribed.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem like they're taking the drug to get high, but actually their pain is undertreated. And then true addiction is where people, despite the social consequences of the drug, they're continuing to take it. It's causing problems at home. Maybe they've been arrested for DUI, they've lost their job, they're late to work, they're getting medication from multiple different sources, buying it off the street. These are all things that are more characteristic of true addiction.
So suffice it to say, there is a role for these type drugs in pain treatment, but the key is always follow your doctor's instructions.
Yeah, that's right, and respect them.
Dr. Aaron Shores from Spine and Neuro Pain Specialist, thanks so much for getting us smart on this stuff.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. I have a friend of the show here, Thomas Winterman. He's a published author and a certified
clinical counselor.
I always get that wrong. I'm so sorry, Thomas. But what's our Thrive tip for the week? This wonderful book, The Thrive Life, gives you tips on how to live a good life, or a more creative life perhaps, or a more constructive life, or more rewarding life in general. And there are some tips in there that can keep us going throughout the week. So here it is, Monday. What's our tip for the week that'll get us through?
For this week, it's there is no tomorrow. And I am the king of making excuses for not starting something good for me, like working out. I'll be all excited about waking up at 5 a.m. and getting started and getting it going, and this will be like a Thursday. And I'll say, I'll start Monday. Monday would be a good day to get this started because it's the start of the week, it's brand new. Then Monday rolls around. Doesn't happen.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm kind of a procrastinator myself, and maybe a lot of people are. You put things off like, no big rush, we can do that later.
Yeah.
Not a good habit.
No, it's a terrible habit. Or it'll be something like, I need to get some new running shoes before I start running. Or, I don't have the armband for my iPod, so I can't listen to music while I run. I'll put it off until I get that. The more we put things off, the less likely we are to do it. So day one, the day you think about it, the day you make a plan, get started. Get started on it, because truthfully, there is no tomorrow, because once the next day comes, it's today, and then you'll say tomorrow again.
Yeah, so there really is no tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow.
Because if you make it really easy to say that, I'll do it tomorrow, tomorrow comes and you can do that again. It's just too easy for you.
If you've got the time to think about it and plan it, you've got the time to do it.
How has that helped you in your life, though? And how do you do that? If you're an undisciplined person, do you just have to find some inner strength to just suck it up?
You do, and it gives you some immediacy in your life. And the thing about exercising and working out is that tends to build positive momentum. And once you start going, your endorphins start going, your adrenaline starts moving a little bit. You find the motivation after you get started.
People talk a lot about going to the gym, but they don't actually go.
Yeah.
And I know just from personal experience, there's times when I was like, oh, geez, I have dragged myself into the gym. I didn't want to go. I was too tired, wasn't feeling right, the whole thing. But after the workout, I'm so glad I went.
Right.
You know?
Right. Nobody ever regrets a workout. 2 weeks later, you won't look back and think, well, geez, I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But that cheat meal that you had, you might look back a week later and think, oh, man, I am reaping what I sowed there.
So the tip of the week is there is no tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow.
There's no tomorrow. Don't procrastinate. Thomas Winterman, thanks so much for
Thank
that
you.
Thrive tip for your week, and we'll see you next time.